You've just read Chapter 13 of Resilient, Achieving the American Dream. And this is quite amazing where you've gotten to in your life. From where we began to where we are now, things are really changing. You are also now known as the guy in real estate because of one particular deal that you're going to pull off that no one's ever pulled off before. But it goes wrong, and Norristown Lenny has to show up. So why did you feel you had to bring out that version of yourself?
So I lived on the main line, right? Main line, Philly, is the well-to-do, the affluent, wealth. It's all on the main line in Philly. There are pockets in Center City, Rittenhouse Square, and stuff like that. But the main line, when you say the main line to someone in the Philadelphia area, they know, oh, that's where the rich people live. So Teresa and I, we moved from South Philly to the main line in a town called Penn Valley. And the girls, we moved them in. They're going to school. I transitioned my real estate license from Center City to the main line. And so I was working around people that dealt with a lot of money. And, you know, I was working the office floor one day at the front, and this guy comes in. And he was like, "Hi, are you new here?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm new. But I've been in business, real estate, for many years." And he was like, "Oh, I have a house that it's been on the market for, 20 years. Okay, and I've had 10 different real estate agents, and nobody can sell it." I said, "Well, I could sell it." He's like, "But you're new." I said, "No, I'm new here. I'm not new to real estate. I can sell it. Do you want me to take a look at it?" He was like, "Yeah." So we made an appointment to go look at his shithole property. Right? It was disgusting. I was like scared to walk into it. And but the driveway was beat up, but it was a nice long driveway. Like if you refinished it, right, it'd be substantial. And it was a flag lot, right, in the shape of a flag, right? So you drive up the pole, right, which is the driveway, and then it opens up to the right like a flag would. And so I walk in, I'm like, fuck, this is disgusting. This whole house should be torn down, right? And so I said, I like the business. Give me the business. I'll sell it. And he did. He gave me the listing, and I marketed the property in Europe, right? All over the place. And, I got a bite. It was a doctor couple, right? They were both doctors. And in this house it was like a lab. It was like a doctor's office lab off the back end, off the front of the house on the left side of the house. And I was like, man, this is perfect for them. So they ended up buying the house. And at settlement, I had a bottle of Moet and Chandon, the Nectar Imperial Rosé, which is my favorite champagne. I had a bottle of that celebrating because I just sold a house that's been on the market for 20 years. Right? People in the neighborhood, in the supermarket was next to our real estate office. I'd be in the supermarket. "Hey, you're the guy that sold, the house." You know what I mean? And I'm like, yeah, I felt good. And here's this guy who I just did this amazing thing for him, and he's like, "Oh, you could have got me more money. I know you were in cahoots with the buyer's agent. You." I said, "What the fuck?" And then all of a sudden, man, I'm like, this is a rich kid who has never done anything significant. He's hitched to his father, who's was a big time executive, and his daddy's money, bro. Like, I'm from Norristown, bro. We don't play this shit. Like, what you doing? So I gave it to him. I gave him the Norristown attitude. And I was like, fuck you. And he's like, "I'm going to tell the real estate commission on you." I said, "Good, fuck you." I gave the bottle of champagne to the receptionist on my way out, and I smiled at her. She smiled back, and I got in my BMW X5, and I went to my 10,500 square foot mansion.
And a shift in you had happened. You've decided you're switching gears.
Done with real estate. I'm done. I don't want to be in a business where people treat you like shit. And, shout out to everybody in real estate. I know you know what I'm talking about. The clients that we had or have, sometimes they treat you like you work for them. And being an independent contractor within a company that services, people that want to sell and buy homes, it's tricky because you don't want to upset them. Right, because they'll drop you as a client, and they'll just, as a realtor, and they'll just go choose someone else. Mm-hmm. Now, that's a tough situation to be in, but that's bullshit, man. You don't treat people that way. And he was treating me like I was a piece of shit, and I'm not a piece of shit. He was treating me like I was worthless, and I'm not worthless. So I was like, fuck this guy. And I went home, and I was pouting, and I was angry, and Teresa came home. She's like, hey, what's wrong? And I said, fuck that guy, blah, blah, blah. I'm done with real estate. I don't want to be in a business where people treat me this way. And she goes, okay, what are you going to do now? Incredibly supportive. I said, well, I'm going back to school. I'm going to be an architect.
So that line, I wrote it down. That line, I'm going back to school, in most relationships would be devastating.
Why?
Well, because it's like, oh no, we need your support. We need you to stay on the plan.
No.
Instead, you're in this kind of relationship that's incredible to me.
I don't agree with you. Thank you for your perspective. Mm-hmm. But a lot of times, it's financial, right?
Sure.
That argument's financial. Oh, you want to go back to school? I have a friend whose wife decided to go back to school. Well, she wasn't working in the first place, right? So it wasn't anything. Now, they don't have a big house. They don't have nice cars. They don't take trips because they can't afford it. But it really wasn't that big of a deal because she sat home anyway. And the kids are all older, right? She's been sitting at home since they were born. And so for her to go back to school is going to be a benefit to the family, bringing in another income because she's going back to school to get a degree so she can get a job. So that would be a two-part income.
That's a good point.
Income.
That's a good point.
In my particular case, my wife was the GC of a company, and they promoted her after a year of doing the job of 3 people to president of a company. So she got bonuses and she made good money. So she didn't have to worry about me so-called like bringing in a paycheck every week, right? We had a couple of bucks. We had a cushion, right? I had already made a bunch of money in real estate, so we had a cushion. Mm-hmm. And I was like, fuck that. I'm going back to school. I want to be an architect. Now, that cost was going to be substantial. But she was like, listen, our company just donated some money to the community college. I said, oh, shit. That's the college that I went to, when I dropped out of Norristown High. I went to Montgomery County Community College, and I'm familiar with it. She goes, well, let's go drive up and look at the statue, the sculpture that they donated. So I go up, and it's a brand new art barn. I was like, oh, my God, this is amazing. I got excited, right? And I went home. I did the Googling, and, I'm looking it up, and it said art barn, blum, 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 get an art degree, blah, blah, blah. So I started looking at other aspects of this website, and then I found a link that said that Drexel University is a sister school. So you can go to Montgomery County Community College, get a fine art degree, and after 2 years, seamlessly transfer to Drexel to go into their architectural program. I was like, oh my God, this is perfect. So that's what I did. So I went to Montgomery County Community College. I studied fine art, and I met some of the professors, and they liked me. I liked them. We used to go to dinner and hang out, and they thought I'd be a good board member because I had a successful career as an entrepreneur and a real estate salesperson. Mm-hmm. So I said, okay. So I joined the board of the community college. So when I went to class, I ended up parking in the faculty parking lot. And I had a Range Rover at the time. So
my favorite part about this, well, actually, there's two things. One, you make a choice. You make a choice, and it's going to be art. Mm-hmm. Talk to us about assuming the identity and the weight of what it means to be an artist.
Well, you know, I was still an entrepreneur, right? Mm-hmm. And I still did real estate deals, right?
Yeah.
But I was now an art student. Ho, 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 ho. Opened up my whole world, man. Now I'm studying color theory. On one particular occasion, the professor said, okay, everyone, stop what you're doing. Let's go outside. Let's go outside, everyone. We walk down the hall and we all get outside. And then she instructs us to look at the many different colors, see how many colors we can count. I couldn't believe how many shades of green that I counted, how many shades of blue that I counted, how many shades of brown, orange, amber. You know, I was like, oh my, it's like my whole world opened up with color because I was coming and going just like anybody else. But then I actually paid attention to what I was looking at. And as an art student, it's a different perspective, right? So my whole world opened up. I was like, oh my God, right? And I went back in and I was a changed person. I was a more tuned in artist. And it was amazing. So I studied color theory. I studied art history, right? Modigliani, right? One of my favorite artists, Picasso. You know, all of this amazing artwork from yesteryear, you know, Egyptian art, all of it. And it just opened my world up and I fell in love. I'm in the dark room, you know, creating, you know, my own photographs. Oh my God, it was like, wow. I got caught up. And then I was like, you know what? I want to do this. And so I actually started to shop around my artwork to local galleries and they wanted 50%. And I was like, 50% of my work? No, this is crazy. And I remembered I was an entrepreneur. I remembered I had a successful career in 2007 working for Tommy Della Penna and Perry Milo down in Rittenhouse Square at a gallery called Gallery 1903, right in the Rittenhouse Square. I used to sell artwork back in 2007. I remembered I used to sell artwork. I'm an entrepreneur. I have real estate experience. And then a light bulb moment went off. I could probably get a loan for a small building. I could put my gallery in the bottom, but it would have to be mixed use. 2 apartments above, 3 apartments above. I could rent out the top, and that could help pay for the commercial space down below. And that's what I ended up doing in Manayunk, PA. Which is
where our paths would cross.
That's where we met.
Yeah. And
tell the people how we met.
Well, there was... I went into, I was new to town and I was pitching video content. I'm a video producer. So I went into essentially like a town meeting and there's people, you know, dressed collared shirts and you know, women in dresses and whatnot. In the back of the room is a guy wearing some comfy clothes, hanging out, chilling in the back, listening to the pitch. And what he doesn't know is I am on my last dollar. I need to make this pitch work. So I'm pitching the town to basically say, you know, for X amount, you guys can have an advertisement. I'll start a show that highlights the town and everybody here can have an opportunity to be featured in front of it. You'll get, you know, something like 10,000 views. And you know, people are kind of like milling around, and then just from the back, I hear, "Give me the big one." And Lenny would buy the top package I had and literally save my business and let me continue to live in Manayunk with some graciousness.
My man. That's how
I'll
we
never
do.
forget that. I'll never forget
I didn't
that.
know that story until you told me last time I came to Philly.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. And what was cool about this is now I'm starting to see some names I recognize, and I'm also the dates are starting to line up to where I was there. You know,
Are you saying I should have put you in the book?
Yeah, I'm saying it, but not saying it. But it was great to hear about our mutual friend Sammy.
Yeah.
When you were trying to find the space and how that would work.
Yeah. Wait. Do you remember the time that we were hanging out at the Goat's Beard?
Yes.
And talking about my life? You were like, how'd you do all this? Yeah. That's part of the book. And it transitions to, like, you know, the gallery. I had the gallery and Sammy, and do you remember that time?
Of course, yeah. So we're having a drink. We're going to work on a project together.
Yeah.
So you're in art mode. So this kind of ties into this. You're embracing the artist of it all and starting to pursue creative endeavors. One of them is a short film, and you want to talk to me about it. And we're sitting there, and I'm trying to figure out what the short's going to be about. We just met to just kind of brainstorm, see what sticks. But one of the first things I do is I'm like, you know, Lenny, I am curious, how did you get to where you are? And what you would do is give me one of the coolest stories ever. And I would say, oh my God, well, that's it. That's what the short film's going to be about. And you go, I think it's going to be a book. So we're not going to do that right now.
Yep.
And now it's a book.
Now it's a book.
Going back to chapter 13.
Hold on, wait. Let's back up real quick.
Yeah.
But we ended up doing the short film.
We did do the
short. It was
short.
great working with you.
Thank you.
So I wrote, directed, and produced my own short film. And, it turned out...
We shot it in the house.
Shot it in part in the house and then in Manayunk at the...
at the studio, yeah.
Studio, yeah.
Yeah, but we were in your house, the house that's discussed and whatnot, and it's fun reading this and knowing like, oh my God, I was kind of there in parts.
Right.
There's an amazing, but before the gallery, you graduate, and that's an amazing payoff to Mama.
Yes, I made my grandmother a promise that I would be successful and I would get a degree. And my mom, rest in peace, I lived up to my promise. I am successful, and I do have a fine art degree.
You do, and when your work and art and fine art was brought up in Norristown, you were met with, what do you know about art? You're from Norristown.
Yeah. In the book, I didn't mention who had said that. I said a friend. But in fact, on my way to art school one day, or on my way home from art school one day, I stopped at Craig's house, Craig Salomon. He's the one who said that shit.
Oi.
Yeah, he's the one who said, well, you're from Norristown. What do you know about art? So in the book, that's Craig.
That's wild.
Yeah.
See, that's why you listen to the companion podcast, right? Get stories like that. But you do kind of talk about it a little bit in that in Norristown, there's sometimes you need to hustle to survive. And once you're, and that's the only goal, is survive, not become successful.
I'm sure most people believe in their minds that they are successful, and as they should, because each individual person in this world should define what success means to them. So therefore, when success does come, it's familiar to them. They can see it. That resembles the sentence that I put out for myself, and now I can say I'm successful based on that, right? An observation. And that's what most people should have. In Norristown, it's that. And it's, I believe if you are going to be successful in the way that outsiders would define it, which is, money, house, car, like you live in a quality of life at a high level, right? That is something that I believe you have to leave Norristown to get it, right? I think there's limited opportunities in Norristown in association with the limited belief system that, being born in Norristown, it comes with it, right?
And there's Norristowns around the country.
There is.
Where I'm sure it's the same kind of thought.
It's not new. It's always been there. And I just knew from an early age, I had to get out of Norristown. There was something calling me in more. I wanted more. I wanted to see the world, right? And I had to get out in order to live up to, what I believed I was and who I am. I had to get out. It's a small town. It's a town of 35,000.
There's two other payoffs that happen in this chapter. Mm-hmm. One is you get the other side of the story about Tony and about the fateful fight that would prevent Pittsburgh from happening.
Yeah, I lost a football scholarship. My family suffered, for it. And Tony ended up, and I mentioned this earlier, Tony ended up lying to the police and to the school. And he said, I was the one who punched him out of the blue. I sucker punched him. I'm not somebody to sucker punch. You know what I mean? I defended myself. I got arrested. I was looking at 15 years in prison. I am lucky I got 1 year probation. But all these years later, my life goes on. Teresa and I, we were headed up to Quebec for, I think it was our fourth wedding anniversary, right? Third or fourth wedding anniversary. We wanted to take a trip, and they would not let me in their country. Border Patrol stopped me because they took me over to a computer, and, in the Interpol system, my name came up, and it said criminality. I said, criminality? What the fuck is that? What's you talking? I haven't been in trouble ever since then. And so I was like, damn, high school. Oh, my God, that Tony Buffa shit. So they made me pay a fine, $240 or some shit like that.
Yeah.
And I wonder what they did with that damn money, right? And anyway, it pissed me off. So I came home from Quebec, and I hired a top attorney, and I said, I have to, get this off my record. This is not going to haunt me. I love travel, and I don't want to go to another country, spend all the money on the flight and the hotels and all that, and I can't get into a country because of some shit that happened in high school. I said, nah, fuck that. So he said, all right, this is the process. It's going to be a 3 to 5 year process. You're going to have to get pardoned by the governor of Pennsylvania. So I said, okay, cool. I filled out all the paperwork. At the time, I put me and Teresa's net worth down, our address down. A representative from the courts had to come verify I lived where I lived. So that person who was interviewing me in a 10,500 square foot house. You know what I'm saying? So like, I'm not some, you know what I mean? I'm not that dude. I'm this dude. I'm not what you say I am. I'm what I say I am. So, the interview went well. I'm now in front of the panel of the Board of Pardons for Pennsylvania. And, we're getting into it. And my attorney's doing his job, and then we break for lunch. While we break for lunch, I get a phone call, right? I think it was the Valley Forge Tourist Bureau or something like that near King of Prussia.
Yeah.
They called and they said, hey, we want to interview you. I said, okay. Habitat for Humanity had reached out to them, right? Earlier that year, Teresa and I, or a few months prior to the hearing, Teresa and I had donated $1 million to Habitat for Humanity. We wanted to ensure that 10 families, 10 black families or people of color would be able to own a home in Norristown. So we donated what was equivalent to building 10 houses. And so that was coming out the next day. That article was coming out the next day.
Huh.
It was going to hit the news and all that. And I didn't want it to hit the news. Like, I wanted to do all of this anonymously. But Habitat for Humanity, the CEO asked me out for lunch, and she said, emphatically, she said, hey, listen. We got to let everyone know about this. I'm like, no. My family doesn't want anyone to know about this. We want to do it anonymously. She goes, no, Lenny, you're from Norristown. You're a high school football star. I said, yeah, but that was many, many years ago. And she was like, no, people know who you are. If they see you do this, then they're more likely to do something too. I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And so I was like, all right, And that's why I did the interview and all that. And I went back to the Board of Pardons of Pennsylvania after lunch, and I was like, yo, because we finished the whole thing. They told me all about Tony Buffa's side of the story. I realized he lied back then. And they finished with, is there anything else you'd like to say? And I said, you know what? There is. I'm a good person. I lived a good life. And by the way, tomorrow when you open up your newspapers, you're going to see that my wife and I donated $1 million to Habitat for Humanity. You know what I'm saying?
Which is the ultimate payoff in this chapter. Lenny Bazemore officially becomes a millionaire.
Yes.
A dream that you set a long time ago.
2014.
Put that in perspective.
It's crazy. It's like 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Teresa came home one day. She said, hey, I got some news. I was like, what? She was like, we officially became millionaires today. Do you know how crazy that,
Yeah.
But here's the kicker. Remember, we bought a house that was almost 50% off. So we had equity of almost $500,000 in the house that we lived in. So that was $500 right there. So to make another $500 to officially become millionaires over a few years, I think it took 4 years for us. After we got together, 4 years later, we became millionaires. So it's incredible. It's an incredible feeling. But now that I have been a millionaire for a while, I can honestly tell you the hardest thing to do is get the first million. That is incredibly difficult to do because, we have a belief system. A lot of times growing up the way I do, or I did, in communities like that, you have a built-in limited belief system because you're not exposed to the outside world of the haves. You're a have-not, and you don't really know you're a have-not because that's your way of life. And then you're exposed to the, external forces, and then you're like, oh shit, I ain't got shit. Like, oh, and that makes you feel like shit sometimes, man. And if you're strong as in character, morals, and values, it doesn't bother you so much. But when you come from a family like I came from, a broken home, but I had a stepfather living in the home with a mother, that shit's still broken. You just don't grow up with, a belief in yourself that you can accomplish big things. I actually had to learn how to be what I am right now. I had to teach myself how to eat. I could eat. I've had dinner with Prince Edward from England. You know what I'm saying? I've eaten in the finest hotels in the world. Finest restaurants in the world, stayed in the finest hotels in the world. I taught myself how to be, sophisticated, so to speak, and I'm very proud of that.
And if you want to hear more, join us for chapter 14, the final chapter coming up next.